Carvana's so easy. Just a click, and we've got ourselves a car. See?
So many cars. That's a click-tastic inventory.
And check out the financing options. Payments to fit our budget. I mean, that's...
Clickonomics 101.
Delivery to our door?
Just a hop, skip, and a click away.
And bought.
No better feeling than when everything just clicks. Buy your car today on Carvana. Delivery fees may apply.
I'm Richard Serrett. Join me on Strange Planet for in-depth conversations with the world's top paranormal investigators, alien abductees, Bigfoot trackers, monster hunters, time travelers, and more.
The handler one day told her this whole thing about how they've been terraforming on Mars and they're building a colony and they're recruiting specific people of specific bloodlines and specific talents and skill sets to go onto the planet.
On Richard Serrett's Strange Planet, we're redefining reality. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Well, end of an era, guys.
What's that?
LeBron James is not an all-star starter anymore.
It was bound to end at some point. 21 years. It's a hell of a ride.
But he does have a patch.
He's got a patch.
For not being an all-star starter?
Oh, I don't think they're making those.
They might soon.
Ooh, wait. Because there's 3 teams now. Team USA, maybe LeBron sneaks his way in. Because now there's 15 starters.
Yeah, except I think we've got 5 of them already accounted for through the voting. So we've got 5 more starters coming in. Now, the good news is this. They've done away with all positions.
Great.
The top 5, get them. I'm assuming for the reserves, the coaches will pick the next however many. The problem is, I think LeBron's eligible spots have run out because it used to be 7 as far as reserves. They'd pick 7, the coaches would. But now we're really talking about 3 reserves for the internationals, so then 6 spots.
Well, the way that I thought it was is they're going to pick whomever. And then after the fact, they'll say, oh, do we have enough on the American side? Or do we have enough on Team World side? All right, we'll add 2. Adam Silver's going to add after the fact.
Maybe, but what if not? They pick 7 U.S. players, but there are only 6 slots.
Well, at least it's pretty straightforward and clear.
Yeah.
How did we get here?
A lot of people who are very pro player are going to be upset when I say it's the player's fault, man. We got here because we're just trying to put together an all-star game that is competitive. That's how we got here. You could say, oh, the NBA, they're doing all of this because the guys don't play with a reasonable level of effort on All-Star Sunday. That's what this is all about. It's about nothing else. Any criticism you have, it starts with if those guys played like the way they did 15 years ago, which isn't old-timey black and white or, oh, the guys had short shorts or whatever. It's an era where guys were making a lot of money and guys were marketing superstars and players owned private jets and all that glitz and glamour and affluence and responsibility was still present. And the only difference is now they just don't feel like it. Who do we blame for that? I don't know.
Who's the face of player empowerment?
Well, if you ask KG, he's blaming the guy who's not a starter anymore.
If it ain't no stars dunking, I ain't really want to watch it no more. Because, like, that's what created the dunk contest, the aura. Like, when Dominique and Jordan dunked, and then you had Kobe dunking, and then you had the best dunk contest ever with Zach LaVine and
Aaron Gordon.
And Aaron Gordon. It's just like everything else has been like, these is our stars, because those guys is stars in our league. I want to see like a Zion.
It's been fucked up. When Bron didn't get in it, that's when we lost Zion, Ja. All them niggas supposed to get in
Ja.
it. When Bron didn't get in the shit, he fucked the whole tradition up. When Cole slapped the floor, told that nigga, let's go one-on-one, and he passed it, he fucked up the whole tradition.
Damn.
Don't nobody want to hear this? Yeah, I'm one of them gatekeepers. I can say this. Yeah, this shit go. MJ and you went at it, right? Doc J went, okay, cool. Everybody went at it. Bro, he slapped floor on your ass. You supposed to nail his ass with a 3. Boom. Bitch ass nigga, what's up? Y'all supposed to go right there.
Right.
Lord didn't want none of that motion.
Right.
He swung that bitch. Here,
Right.
get that.
Damn.
That's when mama was like, nah, see, you don't want this nigga. Right, talking crazy.
Yeah.
Right. I hate to get to these. That's what really happened.
It's
Yeah.
true
And
fact.
ever since then, we've been off the trajectory. We went this way.
Right.
Now some other shit. Now we got street balls thinking they come here and jump with NBA niggas.
Right.
That's system.
That's crazy. Because if you see some of these NBA niggas go between their legs and man, it's out of control.
I guess our last superstar was who? Vince Carter.
Man, Zion, I can't believe Zion did all that shit and got to the league and then touched. Man, that's crazy. Zion Williamson is not gonna get in no dunk contest when he in the league.
Nah, it's over.
Damn,
none of our stars.
John Morant ain't gonna get into it's over?
Nah.
These niggas are still 20-something. How's it over? Man, y'all tripping, man.
That's an interesting thing because they point to an exact moment when it was still West versus East and Kobe was faced with LeBron. LeBron had the ball and LeBron didn't take the last shot. He ends up passing the ball and Kobe was shocked that he would pass the ball. And my favorite part about that video is they have the actual footage from the game and Carmelo, who is on LeBron's team, also looks similarly shocked. You ever see your friend in an argument and the person on the other side of the argument is making some cases and you're like, I don't want to outwardly say that you are wrong, my friend, and that guy is right, but he's kind of got a point.
It's kind of like looking at the opposing bench when there's a big dunk that happens and your teammate gets dunked on and you see Drew Eubanks on the bench. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know it's bad when your teammates are losing their minds over it.
So that's the point that they point to. Ironically, I have a different point, and it's not LeBron related, or at least LeBron might have been complicit, but the moment I always think of. The All-Star weekend that was in New Orleans, the one that was supposed to be in Charlotte, but then they relocated to New Orleans. It was Giannis's first All-Star game, if I'm not mistaken. And he had a play where he got at half court, and the only person defending was Steph Curry. And as Giannis, that locomotive is picking up steam, Steph literally just lies down on the floor. Very performatively, like, I don't even want to be a part of this. And everybody laughed, and it was a funny thing. And I remember in that moment saying, I don't like that.
It's over.
I didn't even say it so. I didn't think it was emblematic of something that's going to happen later. I just remember in that moment saying, I don't like that. Let's not turn this into a Globetrotters game. I get it. You don't want to get dunked on, but don't do that. It seemed to me that was the beginning of this circling of the drain of we're not taking this shit seriously anymore.
I think correlation in this case is not causation, where I think if we're harping for a day when East versus West meant something and that the East people would really care about beating the West team and vice versa. And I would say maybe LeBron is responsible for that in the sense of the turnover and player empowerment where you're choosing your teams. You're less likely to have a sense of pride over the East if you're not likely to leave that team for the rest of your career, and more players are staying with their teams. As soon as you pull off the guardrails on player changing teams, then East doesn't really matter versus West anymore. So I think if we go to East versus West, I think it's actually chasing the wrong thing.
I couldn't disagree with you more. It has nothing to do with structure. It has nothing to do with affinity. LeBron could have stayed in the East his entire career. He could have stayed with the Cavs his entire career. That wasn't going to change with that. The part where this is changing is the idea that players can look at All-Star Weekend and say, I don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
Not because I feel an affinity or I don't feel an affinity because we changed the structure or because the structure is the same. It's because I don't feel like doing it.
What I'm saying is the Band-Aid of make it go back to East versus West and make it matter.
That won't work because it's not structure driven. To make it East versus West is to imply, oh, that's why they're not playing hard, because they miss East versus
Right.
They don't give a shit. They never gave a shit. Even when they played hard. When Dwayne Wade broke Kobe's nose, it had nothing to do with East versus West. It was, hey, we got to play this game. All right, let's play this game. Let's play this game. I want to win. What are you guys trying to do? Mm-hmm. That was all it was about, right? For 2.5, 3 quarters, we bullshit. 4th quarter, all right, I'm trying to win this game. I don't know what the hell y'all doing, but I'm trying to win this game. That exited as soon as people started making business decisions.
My assignment: uncover why the association inspires more conspiracy theories in volume and salience than any other U.S. sport.
You've heard of the Illuminati.
The truth is out there, but so are lies.
Your eyes can deceive you. Don't trust them.
The NBA has always been controlled by about 8 people.
Denial is the most predictable of all human responses.
If you're only using 10% of your brain, you don't even know that you're using 10% of your brain.
The NBA Illuminati.
If coincidences are just coincidences, why do they feel so contrived?
The Illuminati.
But you start to follow the money, and you don't know where the f*** it's going to take you.
It is unspoken. They have influence among other players.
The NBA Illuminati. Illuminati.
I don't have time for your convenient ignorance.
Maybe I'm a conspiracist now as well.
That's all it took. Oh, we got books, we got schools. You saw a video on YouTube.
My eyes, sir. You've never used them before.
We are the Basketball Illuminati.
This is Basketball Illuminati. I am Tom Haberstroh, and as always, I'm joined by the 5-star Illuminati generals, Amin Elhassan and producer Anthony Mays.
What's up, Illumination? Thank you for keeping your third eye open. As always, you can support us at patreon.com/countthedings. That'll get you ad-free episodes and help us continue to produce the show. Also, check out our YouTube page at Basketball Illuminati. You can watch our Truth Teller interviews and Do You Believe episodes there. Please subscribe and continue to show your support. Thank you.
Our True Teller guest this week is Danny Funt, who just wrote a book coming out Tuesday, January 20th. As we're recording it, it's publication day. Everybody Loses is the name of the book. The tumultuous rise of American sports gambling. I think everyone's going to enjoy this conversation with a journalist who used to contribute to the Washington Post, and you can see his work all over sports media. He just wrote a book about some of the things we think about here on this podcast quite a bit. Stay tuned for that, but first.
You are listening to The Agenda with Amin Elhassan and Tom Haberstroh.
Remember when Karl Anthony Towns was saying, hey man, I feel like Adam Silver made a mistake by having me on Team America because I played for Dominican Republic and I should be on that team. And I was like, I'm not so sure you're going to be an all-star this year, so I don't think you have to worry about that.
Yeah.
You know?
That was a crazy, precipitous decline. Because at that moment, it was like, yeah, man, I think Joker had just gotten hurt. Maybe Towns is a starter. And he's had a rough couple of weeks since then.
Yeah. So the All-Star starters got announced and Wemby's on it. Anthony Edwards got bumped off the starting team out west, and Luka, Shea, Jokic, Giannis, they're all on there. The whole concept of Team World versus Team USA is actually kind of fun. The problem was that they diluted the American team into two teams. I feel like it's not even going to be a competition.
Tom, I'm sorry. Who's won the Olympics every year, every time that we have an Olympics? Who gets the gold? I think it's the USA. All right.
Bro, look at these teams that we're about to have here. So the starting five for Team World is going to be in some combination because of injuries. We'll see. Jokic starting, Luka, Shea, Giannis, and Wemby.
Yeah, all these guys are used to being the top dog. They're used to being MVP candidates on their own team. They don't know how to share, okay? They're not even from the same country. They don't know how to talk to each other. No problem.
Not so sure about that.
USA starters, Steph, Jalen Brunson, Cade Cunningham, Jaylen Brown, Tyrese Maxey. That's right. Jaylen Brown is going to be your starting center.
Well, thanks God we don't have positions.
So unfortunately, they still do have positions on the floor.
Oh.
Wait a second. Do all 5 starters play on the same team and is the other team all reserves? Or do they take those 5 starters for the USA and split them half and half? Is there a draft? I don't know anything about the format.
The starters are not really actually starters, you know?
No, they do start.
They do start.
It's ceremonious.
Yeah.
They get to come out earlier during the 15-minute pregame introductions.
You basically are locking in your all-star status is really what it is all-star starters.
Okay.
That's what it's become.
Wait, so you're telling me one of these guys can come off the bench once the games actually start?
Well, no, I think they'll start, but they won't be the only starters, you know, because they can't.
Yeah, there'll be other starters that weren't voted as starters next to them.
Because those 5 guys are going to be split up and they won't be together on the same team.
Correct. I mean, how many Team World starters have been announced?
All of them. We got 5 guys. Luka, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, Giannis, Victor Wembanyama, and whoever takes Nikola Jokic's spot.
Oh, but we don't know about how many players we're going to have on Team World. Have you guys noticed this little trend that's happening? We talked about Karl Anthony Towns. Did you guys see the latest one?
No, what happened?
Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah. Donnie Mitchell. Donnie Mitchell. There's the Panama.
He has this diary with Anscape by the great Mark J. Spears. And in his latest entry said, quote, I should be on the NBA All-Star World Team, but I don't think people look at me as like a Panamanian basketball player, but I do. I would love to be on the World Team if I got a chance. says Donovan Mitchell, as Mark writes, whose grandmother is Panamanian.
Well, I'll give you some other guys who can make similar arguments. Norman Powell, who played for the Jamaican national team, discovered that he's got Jamaican heritage. I believe his grandmother is from Jamaica. Oh, here's a good one for you guys. How about Anthony Edwards? Yes, he's from Atlanta. From what state? The state of Georgia. What if we change that to the Republic of Georgia? Now you got him as an international player. Michael Porter Jr., he's an intergalactic. He's not even from Earth. That guy's from somewhere else completely different. Ooh, I got another good one for you guys. How about this? Kevin Durant, the Slim Reaper. He's not even from this dimension, right? He's from the nether region, from Hades or someplace like that.
I feel like everyone's just making up this stuff so they don't get beat up on Team World.
No shit. But maybe that's what we need. Maybe that's what we needed all along. An ass whooping.
Oh, you're thinking the long game.
So you're telling me that Donovan Mitchell would rather sit on the bench for Team World than play for one of the two American teams?
I mean,
sí, papo.
Well, you know what, Donovan Mitchell? You can't ever be on Team USA in the Olympics. How about that?
Ooh, I like this. You're tying in Team USA basketball with the All-Star game.
Hold on, Lionel. Again, you don't want me to play on the international team, but I need my fucking Olympic job, man.
Oh, that's interesting, Donovan. That's very interesting that you're changing your tune here. Huh. So in a situation where you could win, you want to be on Team USA. In a situation where you could lose, you don't want to be on Team USA. Huh.
To me, I like it. I look at it as this is a good thing. Because if he's that anxious about it, hopefully that energy translates when they get on the court and it doesn't dissipate into just more bullshit that we see every year.
It would be good, though, if it was 8 guys on Team USA and 8 guys on Team World.
Don't worry, Tom. I'm pretty sure that they'll change the way this works again by the time we do this next year. In fact, I would bet on it.
We've got Danny Funt here in a second. A shocking, rip-roaring read and an essential work of investigative reporting from Steve Call, Pulitzer Prize-winning author, talking about Everybody Loses. The latest from Danny Funt. Going to join us here right after this.
Hello, listener. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that we at Cinephobe love our pets. Zach and Boogie are inseparable. I've got 2 cats and a dog, and Amin is giving his best ass-on performance to convince dog owners that he loves their pet.
Hey, Noodle. Hey, boy. How you doing? And Noodle was just like, whatever.
Which is why today's episode is sponsored by the ASPCA Pet Health Insurance Program. Your pet is part of your family, and you want the best for them no matter what. But vet bills can really add up. That's why you should check out pet insurance. And with ASPCA Pet Health Insurance, you can focus on the care your pet deserves and cover what matters most. If your pet is having a medical issue, the unfortunate situation is that they can't tell you about it. Maybe their behavior is a little weird and you're left guessing and you got to take them to the vet. Hey, you can't schedule these things. And that's why it's worth checking out ASPCA Pet Health Insurance, because it can help you with an unexpected vet bill and make sure your pet gets the care they need when they need it. The best part? There's a special perk for signing up. Because when you enroll in an ASPCA Pet Health Insurance plan, you could get a $25 Amazon gift card. It's a little treat for you while you're doing something great for your pet. The ASPCA Pet Health Insurance Program offers customizable accident and illness plans, making it easier for pet parents like you to help your pet get the care they may need. They allow you to customize your plan, helping ensure that your pet's plan is as unique as they are. Because big vet bills never show up when it's convenient, do they? To explore coverage, visit ASPCAPetInsurance.com/dings, D-I-N-G-S. That's ASPCAPetInsurance.com/dings. Eligibility restrictions apply. Visit ASPCAPetInsurance.com/Amazon terms for more info. This is a paid advertisement. Insurance is underwritten by either Independence American Insurance Company or United States Fire Insurance Company and produced by PTZ Insurance Agency Limited. The ASPCA is not an insurer and is not engaged in the business of insurance. Hello, listener. It's Producer Mays here to talk to you about Quince Cookware. Now, if you're like me, you spend a lot of time in the kitchen. And whether it's whipping up a quick breakfast or trying to master that dinner recipe, quality cookware is a crucial part of the cooking experience. And let me tell you, this stainless steel 3-quart saute pan from Quince is my new favorite pan. It controls the heat so evenly, and it's super easy to clean. Quince has everything you need to upgrade your kitchen. From stainless steel and nonstick frying pans to chef-quality knives to sophisticated flatware and European linen napkin sets for your table. And the best part? Like their clothing, Quince's cookware is half the cost of similar premium brands. By partnering with top artisans, Quince cuts out the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I love my Quince sauté pan so much, I'm looking up new recipes to cook with it. So why don't you make a New Year's resolution to give your kitchen essentials the upgrade they deserve with cookware from Quince? Don't wait. Go to quince.com/dings for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada, too. That's QUINCE.com/dings, DINGS, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dings.
Now that the holidays are over, you might be feeling like you got a big spending hangover. The drinks, the holiday food, the gifts, my God, the gifts, it all adds up. Luckily, Mint Mobile is here to help you cut back on your overspending on wireless this January with 50% off. That's 50% off. Wow, 50. Unlimited premium wireless. I switched to Mint Mobile sometime last year, right? Months and months and months ago. I still get asked about it. Am I really saving all that money? Yeah. It's incredible, and the network is just as good as it was before. Mint Mobile's end-of-year sale is still going on, but only until the end of the month. Cut out Big Wireless's bloated plans and unnecessary monthly charges with 50% off 3, 6, or 12 months of unlimited. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. That's right, you're not doing weekend minutes anymore. It's not the 20th CB. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. You don't have to re-put anybody in there. Cheryl's in there. Johnny's in there. Don't worry about it. Again, I use it. I'm so happy I switched over. This January, quit overspending on wireless with 50% off unlimited premium wireless. Plans start at $15 a month at mintmobile.com/dings. That's mintmobile.com/dings, DINGS. Limited time offer, upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12 months. Plans required $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 GB may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. See mintmobile.com.
You all think I'm late. Well, I'm not late. And I'm going to stay right here and fight for this lost cause. Even if this room gets filled with lies like these. And the Taylors and all their armies come marching into this place. Somebody will listen to me.
There's no better way to overpower a trickle of doubt than with a flood of naked truth.
But the complexity and the gray lie not in the truth, but what you do with the truth once you have it.
What is true and right is true and right for all.
You and I both know that that's just not the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Too messy. Keeps them up nights.
I'm here because in the end, the truth is worth the risk.
Speak a little truth and people lose their minds.
I'm a grown man, you can tell me the truth.
Why is it people who want the truth never believe it when they hear it?
So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do something really outrageous. I'm going to tell the truth.
This was actually hand-delivered to me by Danny Funt himself. Can you believe that, guys?
That's VIP servicing right there.
There you go.
For real. Yeah, I wish we could go sit courtside as well with the whole VIP concept, but not so much.
Yeah. So when we grabbed lunch like a week ago or so, Danny, I asked you like, what is the thing you had most fun writing? And you said the chapter about VIPs and what teams and stuff will do to take care of their VIP clients. And you're like, just wait till you read it. And I raced home and read it, and it was, I can't even. So this book right here, it's called Everybody Loses by Danny Funt, who lives here in Charlotte. And we got to know each other through mutual friends. And when I found out you were doing this book, I was like, oh, wow, you're going to like uncover some really interesting things here, because it's kind of this shadowy thing that everyone knows about is the role of sports betting or betting in sports. And no one really has really kind of reported it.
I wonder why.
Yeah. And literally this quote, It is from this chapter on a silver bullet. A silver, I think, is a pun about Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner. And on this page, it says a quote, "I was the shadowy hand." And I was like, oh, that's going to be perfect for Illuminati. So the shadowy hand, there's a huge hand, a shadowy hand in sports that is at the controls to legalize sports betting with the 2014 PASPA reversal. And ever since then, I don't think there's been a good explanation of how we got here until your book, Danny. Like, how did we get here where it's everywhere? And now there's literally since we grabbed lunch, there was a scandal in college basketball that a bunch of players were named, and it wasn't like 6 players named. How many? Over 20 players were identified?
They said like close to 40 were involved, but they indicted more than 20. Yeah.
So it's literally happening at like a day-to-day basis. A huge scandal erupts, and it feels like we're almost becoming numb to this now.
Yeah, I thought you were about to quote Henry Abbott, who's in the media chapter, saying that sports media is being bribed by all this gambling advertising. Just hearing him say it so bluntly, I found compelling, but it's pretty intuitive if you just look at how they kind of walk on eggshells when they're talking about gambling nowadays, that they don't want to upset these partners that pour in, hundreds of millions of dollars into sports media, and in exchange, there's sort of an unspoken rule that you don't say anything that's going to upset them. I'd love to get into the whole shadowy hand thing. It's such a big part of why the leagues got on board and why their assurances about, this is not going to damage the integrity of sports was a very calculated strategy, and it's kind of falling apart as one guy after another gets arrested. Yeah,
Danny, I want to bring in Amin because, Amin, you're the mayor of Vegas, Summer League.
Oh, Summer League, well, not of Vegas.
Okay, there's a clear distinction.
Happens to be in Vegas. I just got to be clear about that.
Right. Can you roll back like what David Stern in the All-Star game in Vegas, how to set the stage on where we are now, what the relationship of the NBA was in your recollection of like being in the NBA, the relationship between the NBA and Vegas? So
Vegas was an exciting thing to go kind of test out a ground. Obviously the Lakers I think continue to still play a preseason game in Vegas every year. So it wasn't like a foreign territory. What happened at the Vegas All-Star Weekend, though, was a level of lawlessness because Vegas is so close to Los Angeles. It's in driving distance of a lot of major metropolitan West Coast cities. And it was just an element that came in that felt very of Vegas at the time. Like, these are people who were kind of lawless, rule breakers, whatever. This is a time, if you can imagine, marijuana wasn't legalized anywhere in the United States. And so it was a lot of people smoking weed in public places and stuff. And it was just, as far as David Stern and his overprotection of the brand, it was a disaster. Not a disaster in terms of the quality of play or the events, but just as a destination weekend representing the NBA, it just felt like they had no control. And it was like, we'll never do anything here again.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, Summer League was still happening, or it was just in its infancy there, its first or second year. But that wasn't owned by the NBA at the time. And it slowly starts to build because teams are realizing, hey, if I'm going to go somewhere for 2 weeks to watch guys who are not going to make my team play, might as well do it somewhere cool like Vegas as opposed to Orlando or some of the other places, because there's something to do and there's somewhere to eat and everything's always open. And when the question of, well, isn't this temptation bad for these young players? The answer was, well, our whole life is temptation on the road in the NBA. So if someone can't handle the pressures, celebrity, fame, fortune, and 24/7 access to fun, let's call it catch-all fun, then let's know now. Let's not invest years and years in this person. So all of that, but it was never about gambling specifically. Stern had his own views on gambling and the problems that it brought with it. But I don't think Vegas itself had a gambling-specific stigma about it. It was more about all the other stuff.
Yeah, Danny, you talk about the Tim Donaghy scandal. Wasn't that around the same time, the Donaghy scandal? And when
07, 08, around that time.
And so, Danny, what is the biggest like swing factor from that Vegas fallout from the 2000 whatever? Yeah, the All-Star NBA All-Star in Vegas, the Donaghy scandal, and then 7 years later, Adam Silver's out here writing an op-ed in the New York Times, and I've always wondered, like, what changed? Because I know the commissioner changed, David Stern and Adam Silver changed. But in your book, you identify some studies that were done that kind of swung the from one side of the aisle to the other. And can you explain to folks what you discovered in your reporting of why the NBA kind of went to the other side?
For sure. So just to lay the groundwork and going off what Amin was saying about David Stern, I was very interested in like, of these commissioners who did this profound 180 on gambling, which of them actually have serious convictions about, gambling is bad for sports, and which are just kind of parroting the company line. And it sounded like Rob Manfred of Major League Baseball and Roger Goodell of the NFL are just kind of walking, politics and what their owners feel. And David Stern actually really detested gambling and was like very animated, even in private, compared to all the negative things he said in public. In particular, when he was speaking with Governor Chris Christie of New Jersey, as Christie was fighting for legalization, Christie told me that Stern was like, gambling treats athletes like chattel. And he just got super worked up about it. So I think he was a genuine, true believer. But he resigns in 2014. That same year, Adam Silver publishes this op-ed in the New York Times, legalize and regulate sports betting, and offered a variety of arguments why that was good for the NBA and sports. My understanding is that like really caught the other leagues off guard because they're co-parties with the NBA in federal court saying uphold this federal ban. So they were somewhat blindsided in that way. We could get into his public reasons. The honest reasons that I've gathered from people who worked with him was that he was very envious of British soccer. So he saw how the English Premier League had embraced gambling. You had all these teams with gambling sponsors on their jerseys. Many of them were not British companies and not really even going after British gamblers. Some of them were Asian facing and were like, let's use the EPL to grow our global business. Obviously, the NBA is really committed to growing internationally. So Stern saw that and was like, what are we doing to miss out on this opportunity? The other piece of it that ties back to Mr. Shadowy Hand is the EPL had figured out that you could brand legalization and the leagues partnering with sportsbooks as somehow an effort to protect the integrity of games because you're monitoring betting data, you have access to who's betting and how much they're betting and all this granular stuff that is invisible supposedly if it's happening through the black market. And they also explained not only is that a useful argument for, legitimizing why you want to cash in on legalization, but you can compel states maybe to either offer what was initially branded as an integrity fee, where they're getting a cut of sportsbook revenue, supposedly because they have to do all this extra stuff to protect the integrity of games. Or what ended up happening was they're selling data to these companies that also provide the integrity services, mainly Genius Sports and Sport Radar. And that was kind of a very sly twisting of, on the one hand, they're saying it's going to enhance integrity. On the other hand, it's a pretty brilliant way for the NBA and the other leagues to monetize the whole integrity apparatus.
Danny, I want to ask, because you brought up the EPL. Is it your observation that Europe and by large the rest of the world doesn't have this integrity problem or problem gambling issue, or is it that they found a way to handle it and we just haven't?
On both counts, absolutely not. So on the problem gambling issue, there was a study in 2024 that was like a government-funded study that was the first really robust look at the prevalence of gambling problems. And it found that adults were 8 times more likely to have gambling issues than had previously been thought. So it's legitimately a public health crisis in the UK. As far as scandals go, there have been players busted for gambling in the EPL, throughout European soccer. On a lower level, I spoke with this guy named Moses Swaibu, who was briefly in the EPL, and he was playing like lower level, almost semi-pro soccer in England, and was busted for colluding with these very sophisticated betting syndicates. And he walked me through how all of these kind of surface level arguments of like, this will protect, legalization protects sports, all this stuff about partnering with sports books and the data you get. He's just offered very interesting, insightful reasons why that's bogus. And just the other thing while we're on the EPL, is I mentioned that for a while, half of teams had gambling sponsors on like the chest of their jerseys. Mm-hmm. And a couple of reporters in Europe have dug up, like, if we think FanDuel and DraftKings do shady things, those companies are just on another level of evil. One of them in particular that was on two teams' chests is notorious for having these cyber slavery compounds in South Asia, where people are basically kidnapped and trafficked to go work at a sports book and like do their data management and all that. And they're prisoners, effectively. It's like very illegal, very horrendous. And these reporters have asked the EPL, like, how could you possibly be in business with these companies? And they essentially shrug. This is not, I know this is, a conspiracy theory podcast. That's not a conspiracy. They have been outed for doing that. And yet they're the most prominent sponsors of some of these teams.
What?
I know.
How do you even, this is a bad question. How do you identify this guy would be good at this?
Doesn't matter.
Or do they just grab whoever?
Doesn't matter. They're not going for highly trained individuals. It doesn't sound like they're getting whoever they can, but yeah. Well, okay. So DraftKings and FanDuel look better.
Yeah,
by comparison.
The good guys.
That's standard. Yeah. It's true.
Danny, as we all know, he's doing PR for DraftKings and FanDuel here on this show, right? I'm in the middle of this book, and I'm writing down some stuff because I had to look back at my own like childhood of like gambling, when gambling was, I didn't know it was gambling, but the NCAA tournament brackets was like a big family moment for like in our family. It was like, we all wrote up our brackets, put it up on our hearth, like over our fireplace in the living room. And we all tracked our bets essentially. And I remember how addicting that was and how much fun, like as a kid, I would always look forward to this March Madness thing. And it was, I guess, soft marketing, that like soft gambling marketing. And I didn't quite realize how much I would be susceptible if I was growing up in high school, being in middle school and high school now, how susceptible I would be to gambling if it was on my phone. And it's it's sickening reading your book in some ways, because it's just, we're so screwed. We're so screwed with young kids on gambling and stuff.
So let me ask Danny this question based off of that, Tom. Would we have been better off had gambling been ratified, sports gambling been ratified earlier, ahead of the tech developments of everyone having a supercomputer in their pockets, so that when the advent of these supercomputers in our pockets arrives, we can say, whoa, we can't have this part of it. Like, it's easier to wall off that access point when you're there first, as opposed to you get there and it's already here.
I think that online betting is just so much exponentially more profitable than in-person betting. Even if we had it, like, they never would have been able to resist. Right. New Jersey is a good example. So the whole argument for legalization there was, our casinos are going out of business in Atlantic City. Our racetracks are dying. We need to jumpstart that economy with sports betting. And so the argument to the courts and ultimately the Supreme Court was, this is an in-person product that we're after. And like within weeks of the court's decision, they legalized online betting, just because nowadays 95% of betting takes place on your phone. I don't think if you're okay with legal sports betting, I don't think anyone's going to be able to resist all that.
Yeah. I think about that all the time with, I don't know when it was when I had the revelation of how gambling is so much different than alcohol and cigarettes. Because if I'm sitting on my couch and I'm like, hey, and if I have a problem with gambling, I can't just be like, I'm going to click a button on my TV and instantly I'll be able to have a Bud Light in my hand.
Give Amazon a couple more months, Tom.
Yeah, or like if you had just like a bottomless flask in your pocket at all times, how hard would that be to resist? Some of this stuff is so basic. Like, I hope there are things in my book that will make people step back and say, never thought of it that way. The idea that smartphone addiction and how easily you can get caught up overdoing it with gambling is just like an obvious, combustible pairing. And yet people like Charlie Baker, the president of the NCAA, told me when he was governor of Massachusetts when they legalized bookmaking, and then a few months later became NCAA president. And he was like, I just never realized that betting on your phone is a whole different ball game than going to a casino. And I wish I'd known, because this should have stayed in Vegas, was how he put it. So super basic. There's a lot about what a game changer online betting is besides the addictive component of it. I mean, that's certainly a big piece, especially when we're talking about like micro betting, every minute of a game you're watching. But one thing I really tried to bang home in the book is a lot of the fixing threat that is created, that we're experiencing nowadays, is a distinct byproduct of the online betting era. Like in particular, the Jonte Porter bets. You could not, I've talked to enough Nevada bookmakers who've been doing this for decades. You could not bet tens of thousands of dollars on a same game parlay involving a two-way player. No one's taking that money. In part because they know it's so easy to fix.
That's the part where I was a little blown away that this is a new development. I myself am not a gambler. I don't. So a lot of these, even this terminology I've just learned over the last 4 or 5 years, because again, we all have to pay our bills one way or another. But I was in the impression that, this has all been happening forever, and now this is just a new avenue with greater access and greater widespread access. And to find out, no, this is a new product that has been developed. It's like, I felt like someone finding out that crack cocaine just started like in the 80s and like before like 1985 or whatever, it was just cocaine. And now there's this version of it that is way more addictive and way easier to get, and with, cheaper buy-ins. And ultimately, Danny, you use the word predatory. Are they preying on big losers, or are they preying on a bunch of losers?
Yes.
Both. And I was cautious with that word just because it's so inflammatory, but I heard it countless times, including from people in the industry. And at that point, you're like, okay, there's got to be something to this. I do think, even, the person who is suckered into betting through a risk-free promotion, only to find out it's absolutely not risk-free and you can lose everything you bet on a, supposedly risk-free deal, to the VIPs who are being egged on to bet in the most like aggressive ways possible. And a bunch of them told me, I'm now in recovery for a gambling problem, and I was addicted to the betting, but also the VIP perks. And then on the flip side of that, you hear VIP hosts saying, it's really difficult for us to intervene and say, hey, are you overdoing it, or do you need to step back? Because these are their cash cows, right? So unless they say something explicit like, I have a gambling problem, there's a ton of internal pressure to look the other way, even if they're saying things that like a sensible person knows is a warning sign. Hey, could you give me a bonus because I'm waiting for my next paycheck to be able to keep betting this much? Like at that point, they're probably overdoing it, but that sort of stuff, a bunch of VIP hosts said is just something they're encouraged to brush under the rug.
I know a guy who works in the VIP division of a major operation, and he invited me to come to a game. And I was like, oh, that's cool. You got some extras? He's like, oh, no, because we have the suite. And I went up to the suite, and it's not my first time going in a luxury suite. Been in a bunch. But I also know that there's levels to this, meaning like the level of catering, for example, varies greatly from one experience to the other. This one had a seafood tower. I've never seen that in a suite. Like that's fresh, flown in from the coast, crabs from Maine and all that stuff. The incredible food spread, incredible. And I was like, well, who are all these other people? And those are the VIPs. And these are all people who had shown a great propensity to wager amounts that would make most of us blush, I think. And I was blown away. And I thought this was a special event, like kind of like a year-end, hey, guys, thanks for hanging in there. Like, no, we do these every month. Different sports, different. It blew me away. And so when I was reading your part in the excerpt, I read it from Vanity Fair. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. This is all in line because it's the ultimate CRM, right? Customer relation management. It's a database, and they know your birthday and your dog's name and your kid's favorite action hero and all that stuff. And they're doing all of these things because they're just trying to reinforce this relationship. But Danny, I want to ask, what part shocked you the most? Because to me, the most shocking part was the idea that these hosts aren't just there to provide perks. Hey, you want to go to the game? Hey, we got you on the drinks. Hey, have some snow crab, whatever. It's that they became a quasi friend that you've actual build a relationship with, not with the company, but with the actual employee.
Yeah, by design, that's the mandate. And I want to speak to that. I will just say, casinos have always hooked up their high rollers with suites and, we'll fly you in first class and get you steak dinner and all that. A huge difference with the legal betting era is these companies have partnerships with the teams and the leagues. So they have access to not just the suites, but hey, let's let our VIPs play pickup on your court, when you're not, or go to shoot around. Or your kids can take batting practice at the baseball stadium. All this different stuff that's facilitated via those team partnerships. I remember telling Tom, I always assumed like your favorite team, official sponsor, official partner of FanDuel or whatever. I assumed that was mainly just like a billboard to get common fans, to trust FanDuel. It's primarily because it gives them access to all those VIP perks. To your question about the whole kind of weird pseudo friendship thing that this engenders. Yeah, that's exactly the piece of it. You're texting them day and night. You're going out drinking or to dinner. You're playing golf with them. And the whole idea is, how can we make you as loyal as possible, to the point that you're loyal to us because we hook you up with these amazing perks, but you're also loyal because if you stop betting or you go to our rival, you're going to lose your friend, the VIP host. And that is, the ethical minefield that creates is just insane.
It reminded me of the Truman Show. The part where he's sitting on the beach with his buddy and says, Truman, if this is all a thing, then I would have to be in on it too. Are you saying that we're not actually friends? And Truman's like, oh man, you're right. Like, I'm tripping, right? It's the same kind of thing, right? It's like, hey, if we're preying on you, then that means I'm preying on you. I'm your friend. I thought we were buddies. And these gambling Trumans are like, yeah, you're right. I'm tripping. Here's another 500 on.
Danny, were you able to speak to any people who had worked as a VIP?
A bunch. Yeah,
all the top companies. The interviews that Danny did and the reporting to get the inside on how really the relationships that these people have with the VIP hosts, as they call them. There was a line, I think you said, they're called VIP representatives, or representatives from DraftKings or FanDuel, what have you, when you're going out and throwing the first pitch and at a baseball game. And someone described it to you by saying they call them representatives because it's better than having the PA announcer, quote, wouldn't tell the world you're a loser. And it's like there is a remorse. I felt like reading some of the people talking about what they did to keep these fish on the line. There did seem to be in your interviews an amount of this was wrong, but like I had to do it to keep my job, or like it felt like I was just following orders.
Yeah, I sympathize with some of them. Some of them seem to have no hesitation to egg on, customers way beyond their limits. But yeah, they would say, like, as I was saying, this is such a battle for market share. And if we cut off, one of our top paying clients, the C-suite's going to say, you got to, what are you doing? Or you got to make up that market share. There's also various kind of performance incentives tied to how much your customers are losing. So again, if you see someone, there's this idea like these wealthy people won't know if a ton of money is gone. Obviously, you're betting proportionate to what's going to make you sweat. So it is real money to them. And if you have performance incentives tied to how much they're losing, once again, it's not, are you really going to blow the whistle on them?
Danny, repeat that. The cut that these bonuses are from are not on the amount bet or wagered. It's how much they lose. That was a bombshell for me reading it, is that like they're not getting paid on just, hey, this guy's betting all this money. You have one of the top high roller clients. They're just continuing to bet. A lot of this is tied to the losses.
Oh yeah, that's all that matters. And they'll deny that it's literally like, hey, my clients lost $5 million, I get my 10% bonus or whatever. But there are clearly, how many clients you're bringing in, how much they're losing. There's performance incentives tied to that. People said that at DraftKings, it's particularly pronounced, like that kind of cause and effect. And one, as we were saying, like, I'm really happy a bunch of these hosts talked to me and some of them attached their names to what they were saying. There was one higher up in the VIP department at DraftKings who's since left, who was saying, betting all this money and more importantly, losing all this money is really just a starting point to qualify as a VIP. What really matters is betting irresponsibly is what it's going to take for us to shower you with these perks. Like, if you're just firing bets, blindly, or you're just pumping money into your account with no rhyme or reason, that's what's going to get you to these top tier VIP status levels. If he gave an example, like if someone likes to bet on the Knicks, but they're like, ooh, this matchup isn't so great, or the odds don't look so good, let me bet a lot less than I usually do. That would be a red flag of like, maybe this guy doesn't deserve to be a VIP. He literally said, irresponsible betting is what it takes to achieve this preferred customer status.
You had an analogy about shearing a sheep for life versus slaughtering a sheep one time that I found really fascinating. So in specific regard to these VIPs, the irresponsible betting that gets you the more perks certainly seems like slaughtering them.
For sure. Yeah. Like just even for people that wealthy, totally unsustainable. And certainly for people who are by no means wealthy enough to be betting at that level, but have a problem. And these companies fail to vet, whether someone can afford to be losing all that, definitely falls in the slaughtering camp. I think, I heard versions of that quote mainly from Nevada bookmakers who, are definitely not super altruistic about how they view gambling. I'm not going to claim they're, these upstanding citizens, but they do have a long-term mindset of how they view their customers. Like the old version of sports betting was, it's a very narrow margin business. You'll be able to afford a lifetime of losing and you'll feel, okay, I lost 5%, but I'm going to keep coming back because you treated me well. And this industry is just so like quarter by quarter driven with, investor pressure. it's also just a whole different mentality because a lot of these companies are European and they just view bookmaking fundamentally differently than those Nevada old school guys. And to them, like a parlay where they're going to hold 30% versus 5%, let's just make that all we get our customers to be betting. And people are saying that's just unsustainable. Like you're going to eventually say, even as delusional as gamblers are, they're going to say like, I'm depositing money every week. I can't afford this.
Can you hammer home the point about like how SGPs and the hold are different than like your standard bet and why sportsbooks really want you to do these same game parlays and 6-leg parlays?
Yeah. So this is subtle, but it's like the basis of why it's the most profitable product for a sportsbook. People think, okay, I'm going to, if I'm doing a straight bet at like minus 110 odds, I'll bet $10. If I lose, I lose the $10. If I win, I get $9. Okay, I'm going to like struggle to break even unless I'm winning a little bit more often than I'm losing. Fine. They'll see a parlay where you bet $10 to win $100. And the assumption is if I hit one of those, it's going to pay for all the losers. So I'm going to lose at the same rate. I'm just going to have a big win to offset all these losses. Not how it works. The house edge that's baked into these parlays is substantially bigger. And it's harder to discern because it's this weird math of fusing the odds of, one leg is minus 200, one is plus 300. We combine those. It's not a simple equation because the odds are correlated. So like a same game parlay in a basketball game, if Luka drops 30, maybe that affects the odds that LeBron drops 30 or whatever. And figuring that out is very complex. So the idea of figuring out what the odds are on a same game parlay, not something you could just do on the back of an envelope. It's like kind of an in-house recipe. And I had this guy who was head of product at FanDuel say the way he put it was not to be condescending, but I would guess about 5% of our customers understand that those odds on parlays are so much worse for customers than straight bets. And that's why, they're making 60% of their revenue now on parlays.
It seems really just like the whole industry seems like a lot of illusions, that you're just spinning up these illusions to customers. And one of the more interesting anecdotes you had was about these VIPs is the LaDainian Tomlinson story. Can you share that one for the audience?
Yeah, I forget what operator that was, but this was probably Daily Fantasy, which also has VIPs. And a group of VIPs in San Diego were taken out to dinner with LaDainian Tomlinson. And one funny detail I found was that at the end of the dinner, they had LT pay the check. And the host who was telling me about it was like, obviously DraftKings or whatever was the ones paying for it, but it just looked good to have LT, handle the check. So yeah. Speaking of illusions, I'm pretty just sure
the detail of that, like the detail of how cool that story. It'll be like, yeah, man, we went out to dinner. It was so like LT was there. It was great.
Picked up the tab,
and dude, he picked up the tab. Like that little cool detail would just that story would become so much more compelling to customer acquisition. It
changes because it changes the whole tenor of the interaction from, it's a thing because I'm a valued customer versus, I went out to dinner with LT. And that instantly changes
It's the friendship thing.
It's the friendship thing.
It makes it seem like LT's your friend now. He buys you dinner.
And just the idea that like a sports book is caring for you or that this host is your friend, like, we have some distance from it, so it sounds ludicrous to us. Like, of course, they're just trying to bleed you dry. But yeah, to those people, it's totally convincing. They're like, I have all this proof, to show it.
Stripper likes me. She really likes me.
Yeah, for real.
Danny, one of the things that, as I've been working in this industry recently is they talk about the cost of acquisition for a new customer. And initially, the gambling houses came in and poured money. Any podcast, any major sports show on TV, whether it's on YouTube or it's on linear television, whatever, doesn't matter. Here's money. Here's free money. Just money, 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 money. And there seems to have been kind of like a little bit of circling the wagons a little bit and saying, okay, maybe that wasn't the most efficient use of our marketing budget. The cost of acquiring new business, does that impact or maybe curtail some of the activity, or is it the opposite? Is it because the cost is so high it makes them go to more extremes in order to acquire more customers?
Yeah, you could argue like if it were cheaper to acquire customers, would they be less greedy about pushing all these
right?
Losing. I doubt it. Like they're always going to want to maximize revenue. It was interesting though how things shook out with customer acquisition and how the strategies evolved. Like initially it was just blanket ads, and then there were all these obscene free money offers. Like if you were in New York when they legalized in 2022, you could just pocket thousands of dollars doing nothing, just signing up for a half dozen sports books. It was that simple. And then a piece in the book that I really enjoyed reporting was they really latched on to the value of affiliate marketing, where either mainstream sports outlets or these ones that are kind of more trade publications, or even sites that are like carolinabets.com or something, where you basically just Google like, where can I bet in Carolina? And that pops up. All of those different types of sites are getting paid a fortune, or at least were getting paid a fortune to funnel new customers to these sports books. So at the high point, at like the most aggressive rush of legalization, sportsbooks were paying media outlets $500 a customer if they clicked on a link and then signed up for the sportsbook. And then that, was appealing enough. And then they said, we'll go a step further and we'll give you what's called a revenue share, where if you refer us a customer and they sign up and start betting, you'll get typically between 30 and 45% of their lifetime losses.
No way.
Now, not only is that potentially a massive amount of money, especially if you happen to refer a VIP, but just the conflict of interest with so many of those sites, their bread and butter content is like gambling picks and advice columns on how you can beat the house. Publicly, they're conveying like, we are your ally, Joe Gambler. Privately, the business is that they're profiting off of your losses. And people own that in the affiliate business and at news outlets. Like this is just a gross deception.
Man, one of the studies that you cited in this book was with Nielsen ratings, how they studied how people who bet on NFL games, how often they watch NFL games versus non-gambling viewers who are NFL fans. And this was, I think, a pretty revelatory, groundbreaking study, because there just hadn't been that many studies on like how gambling affects viewership. And according to your reporting, you talked to someone within Nielsen who did this study. Was that 500 NFL gamblers and 500 NFL fan gamblers, and then 500 non-gambling NFL fans, and they tracked them throughout an NFL season. And the gambling ones watched 35 games on average, and the non-gambling ones watched 16 games on average, so twice as many games. But the amount that they watched also was ridiculously higher for the gambling group, is that gamblers were 25% of the audience, yet 47% of all minutes viewed. And I was like, this rings so true for me, because I'll be watching a Browns Texans game or a Browns Titans game, probably a better analogy there, because I have Njoku on my fantasy team. And I'm like, I got to watch to see if he gets a touchdown in this game. And my wife, who doesn't know who Njoku is, but she has him on our like Battle of the Sexes fantasy football group, where the girls are incentivized to win because they want to show how much you guys are idiots. All the husbands are morons for dedicating their whole Sundays to him. But I watched slowly how my wife was like, I do kind of want to watch this Seahawks game because I've got Jackson Smith-Njigba. And I'm like, you don't know anything about football, but it doesn't matter. She just has skin in the game now. And it's just so interesting to me how quickly that happens, that as soon as you have any sort of money on a game, even if it's fantasy sports, that it's over 16, 18 weeks, you're just that much more likely to watch. And my question is, do you think it's working? Like, do you think to shear the sheep versus slaughtering them, do you think like all these sports leagues that are advertising sports betting and gambling, et cetera, do you think there's like we've reached a tipping point that what if everyone just goes broke because they're gambling so much and they're like, I actually don't want to watch the NBA anymore, or I don't want to watch the NFL anymore because they bled me dry?
Yeah, I mean, that thought has definitely occurred to a lot of people, including like media executives and other people I've talked to. You know, it's so expensive to be a fan in a lot of ways, whether it's the package or going to a game. If you just add this on top of that, it can just turn people off eventually. Also, like early in my reporting, someone was like, do you ever think people will be so worried about their kids getting caught up in gambling and seeing these nonstop ads and broadcasters promoting betting that they would like discourage their kids from watching sports? And I just thought that was outlandish and like alarmist. I'm not so sure now. And it's more just like hearing so many parents say, my kid is like desperate for ways to gamble, and they're seeing these pregame hosts or their favorite players during games promoting betting. Tom, in North Carolina, half of the calls to the problem gambling hotline are coming from parents now who are freaked out about how much their kids want to place bets. So, yeah. But I think so much of this, whether it's the TV audience or the rates at which people are losing, it's just reflective of very short-term prioritizing. Like, I've been so curious why, the old commissioners were not profit averse, obviously, but I do think they had a longer view of their business and like what a lifelong fan looks like. And this, is like squeezing the lemon really hard over a few years. I'm not sure it's good for lifelong fandom.
Danny, one of the things you talked about when you're talking about the gambling houses and how far to push their customers to bet and kind of forget about the moral part of it, just what we're talking about, shearing the sheep. You said the people in the C-suite would discourage that approach because it's basically a competitive disadvantage, meaning if we don't do it, they're going to go somewhere else and give the business somewhere else. And so we have to do it. In the same way, can't that be said about the sports leagues? Meaning, if, for instance, Adam says, oh my God, what did I do? I messed up by allowing this into our house. We'll take the hit on the short-term money of the extra money the gambling is. But isn't there a long-term impact in that if you're not in bed with the gambling houses, now your product becomes less viewed and less valuable as a property to everyone else?
Yeah, it could be. It's also just so many team owners now have financial interests in sports books. The leagues are investors in a number of these companies. You've got like branding rights on, certain stadiums with sports books. Like the business is totally integrated. So that's difficult to reverse. Definitely difficult to reverse for sports media. Closing the door on that revenue stream seems totally unrealistic now. So if they ever had a chance to stand on principle at one point, I think it's gotten a lot harder nowadays. I don't know. In light of like the Terry Rozier arrest and the Billups arrest and all that was happening toward the end of last year, you saw Adam Silver and his peers like slightly walk back some of their enthusiasm or say, oh, we're going to encourage some restrictions on what you can bet on or whatever. A lot of that seemed like window dressing to me. Like the most egregious example was the NFL put out this memo to teams of like, here's what we're doing. And a lot of people assumed these were new initiatives and they were just like old initiatives that they had, installed years ago. That's like the absolute bare minimum. I'm not even, after a Hall of Famer is arrested and, guy who's made $150 million in his year is arrested. Even in light of that, I don't think they're going to walk back their support anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big through lines of this book is that all the things that we thought were guardrails to prevent corruption or game fixing didn't seem to be that impactful. It's like, oh, Terry Rozier makes $25 million a year. There is never going to be someone who makes $25 million a year involved in something like this or alleged to be involved in something like this. And time again, Danny, right? In your reporting, it seems like no matter how much money you make, you're going to be as susceptible as anybody to either problem gambling or at least doing something to win back that money or fix a bet to correct some past losses. I mean, like Floyd Mayweather is one of the most common gamblers out there, and he's the richest athlete. Like in many ways, I don't know what the power rankings is of richest athletes, but it's like
he's up there. Yeah.
I mean, Michael Jordan's gambling is well documented. Phil Mickelson has made about $1 billion between golf tournament prize money and sponsorships. And he's admitted that he had a gambling addiction that cost him, reportedly hundreds of millions of dollars. So yeah, like I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, oh, these guys are uncorruptible. Like they're way too wealthy. This is a whole different, the Black Sox, if they were making 50 million a year, would not have thrown the World Series. It just doesn't work that way. Otherwise, you wouldn't have financial crimes on Wall Street, or else, wealth does not immunize you to bad decisions.
So how do we get to, are we in a place where the best case scenario is what happened to big tobacco happens to gambling? That's the new goal. We can't get it out because the people covering it are benefiting, and the people who are running the leagues are benefiting, and the individual players are benefiting. So the next best thing is, we just highly discourage you from smoking if you're pregnant or whatever.
Pictures of dead babies on DraftKings when you open up the app. You have to click through that to get to your parlay.
Yeah, like those commercials where the person has like a respirator for tobacco. Yeah. What's the gambling equivalent? I think just, one of the biggest failures, and even as a reporter, I feel comfortable saying that it seems open and shut. One of the biggest failures of legalization was these states that were totally blind to what's happening overseas, where they've had sports betting for longer and have realized like this is out of hand. We talked about the UK, all over Europe, Australia, Asia. There's just a lot of precedent of what happens when you unleash betting with so few restrictions. And they're doing, there's a phase of re-regulating happening where they're saying you can't have those ads across the jersey. It's way too prominent, especially if kids are wearing those jerseys. Or you can't have ads during games. Or you can't have these enticements, that give out free money to get people started. Or we're going to have some very modest affordability checks required. So like if I'm banging out $50,000 deposits hour after hour after I'm losing, the sportsbook has an obligation to say, hey, man, can you afford to be doing this? Those sorts of things are well short of outlawing this. And I think the industry often frames it as, are we really going to ban sports betting when there's this big black market we know about? And that totally obscures the fact that there's this vast spectrum of reining it in and installing guardrails and giving customers an actual fair fight in this, that it does seem like there's legitimate momentum among politicians to take action on some of that.
We live in Charlotte, Danny, and I was reading this book and couldn't stop thinking about Dreamland, Sam Quinones' book about how the opiate epidemic took over America and how it's a quiet epidemic because a lot of suburban families with money might have someone who had an opiate addiction and don't want to talk about it. And so no one really knows how prevalent it is because it is kind of like a silent epidemic. Do you find the same parallel here where people don't quite realize how devastating gambling can be to families because it is kind of not a shameful thing, but it's people feel shamed to admit, yeah, I got a problem and I blew my whole life savings or the wedding gifts, all of it gone, or the down payment on the house. It feels like we don't quite realize how problematic this is because it is kind of a quiet thing that people would rather not talk about. And it's not like
There's that stigma that's documented, and there's also just the fact that it's like an invisible disease. Like you don't smell alcohol in someone's breath. You don't see like marks on their arm from shooting up. You can have a gambling addiction and your wife has no idea for years. You know, I found that mind-blowing, and I realized that's naive in hindsight. But when people told me about that, I was like, how could you hide, you know, something you're doing every minute of the day from your spouse? It's hard to not draw that comparison. And, you know, even for me, like I've been immersed in this, I felt like I had a firm grasp of the scope of that problem, but I was taken aback when I announced that the book was available for pre-order last year. A high school friend reached out and was like, I'm glad you wrote this. I had to break up with my boyfriend because he had such a bad gambling problem. It just ruined our relationship. And a professional gambler who I have a lot of respect for reached out and was like, there's this guy I've been sort of assisting for years because he won like $1 million one night, and his dad like told the whole town about it. And then he lost the $1 million and he got into debt, but he didn't want to own up. Like I blew my, you know, jackpot payday. So he was like driving an Uber, you know, discreetly, or like trying to get out of this hole by betting more and more. It's just vicious. And there's so many examples of that. Addiction, particularly gambling addiction, just feels like this fringe problem that like it's sad, but it's, you know, a tiny percent of the population is dealing with it. That percent is growing. And what's also growing even more than that is just more ordinary gamblers who are getting carried away. Like a third of people say they've felt ashamed at some point by how much money they lost betting on sports. There's other stats like that just goes to show this is not like a sliver of the population. A lot of people who do this for a while get over their head.
Danny, what's the worst opposition that you've faced to your work? Or the fiercest, I should say, the fiercest opposition?
That's a good question. I would say there's valid argument. You know, we were talking about how they cut down winners, and it feels unfair. Like, you know, you've presented this as this level playing field, or at least we know the house has an edge, but once you account for that, it's a fair fight. And it feels unfair that they'll cut you down to pennies if you show you're winning. And a lot of very smart, honest bookmakers are like, you don't understand. If we allowed professional gamblers to bet however much they wanted, we would go out of business in a month. Like, they're going to beat us reliably. And it doesn't work that way. I get that. My problem is that, okay, then don't advertise that betting is a way to make money. There was a billboard near my apartment it was a FanDuel billboard that said, turns out watching football can really pay off. And they underlined pay off just to drive that point home. So, okay, if you're going to say don't kid yourself, you're not going to win, because if we allowed winners, it wouldn't work for us keeping the lights on as a business. Fair, but don't advertise in ways like that, because it's sending an entirely different message.
Yeah. There's a good story in the book about risk-free betting and what happens when you advertise something as risk-free and what that really means. Danny, thanks so much for doing this, man. The tumultuous rise of American sports gambling. It's Everybody Loses, out today. We're recording this Tuesday, January 20th. Congratulations on your pub day. Bomani Jones, friend of the program, said, an incredible book. It's an easy read on a difficult subject, one that should make all who care about sports reassess the path we're taking. And I think Joe Madden, Bob Costas, some pretty big names here, Danny. You can throw I got Maze on there too. Maze, do you have any quotes you want to put out there for Danny?
It's fantastic.
Yeah. We did it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, guys. Great talking to you.